Your witness, Mr. Maybanks.
Thank you, Your Honor. How old are you, Deputy Halverson?
39 years old.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a deputy sheriff with the Linn County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you held that position?
Approximately 9 years.
You married?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any children?
Yes, sir.
How many?
I have 3 children.
I want to go through your background a little bit. Can you first tell us about your educational background?
Yes, I graduated high school in 2001 from Pekin Community High School in Pekin, Illinois. Shortly thereafter, I went to Illinois State University, where I took about 5 years to get a Bachelor's of Science degree in criminal justice.
So by my math, then you graduated in 2006?
Yes, sir. The summer of 2006, I believe.
And what did you do after the summer of 2006?
I was a security guard for Caterpillar, which is a machinery plant in Peoria, Illinois, for about a year, and then I took a job with the Federal Bureau of Prisons in Pekin, Illinois, for about 2.5 years there.
So then we get to about 2009, right?
Yes.
Okay, what'd you do after that?
I transferred there down to FCC Forest City, still involved with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, or as a prison guard down there in Forest City, Arkansas, for approximately 2.5 years there also.
And so then we get up to about 2012 or 13. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What'd you do next?
I moved up to the Cedar Rapids area. I worked probably 6 months with Raining Rose while I was in between jobs, and then I took a job with the Department of Veterans Affairs with their police service down there for roughly a year or so, I think.
And at that point in time, then did you apply to be a Linn County Sheriff's Deputy?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure the exact time. The hiring process is lengthy, but I did apply with the Linn County Sheriff's Office. That was my next job after that.
Tell us a little bit about that process and what you had to go through to be a Linn County Sheriff's Deputy.
Part of the hiring process is you have to take a written test as well as a physical test. A physical test involves push-ups, sit-ups, a sit and reach to test flexibility, as well as a 1.5-mile run under time. After passing that, then you are given an offer, and then I took a polygraph test as well as a drug screen and interviewed with the Civil Service Commission.
I got to ask, how many push-ups did you have to do?
When I was younger back then, I think it was maybe 30-something. It changes as you get older. You have to do less.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
What assignments have you held with the Linn County Sheriff's Office?
When I first got hired, I was assigned to the jail, the correctional center, wherever a new deputy starts. I was in there for about 6 years, maybe. I came out in 2020, I believe, the summer of there, to the patrol division after that. While I was in the jail, I've been assigned to our honor guard division, or extra duties with honor guard, an accident investigator. I'm on our peer support team, and I believe that's it.
So with all of your experience being a prison guard, did that translate pretty well in becoming a Linn County Sheriff's Deputy at the jail?
Yes, it did. Part of being a prison guard is you have to learn to talk to people. When I was in the federal prisons, it was me with 128 other convicted federal inmates in a housing unit by myself, at times locked in there. So you have to learn to talk to people. You treat people like they're human, because ultimately everyone's human. I'm not here to punish anybody. My job is just to make sure everyone can get along, basically. And I feel I was very, very good at my job. Even when I came to work here, I've met some of the people working here that I met in federal prison, and they know me to be fair. I treat them with respect, and I never have really any problems with them.
I don't remember if you said or if I asked, but did you have to receive a certification or graduate from the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy?
Yes, I did. After I was given my conditional offer for hire, I was given the official offer for hire, and shortly After being hired in March of 2014, I was sent to the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy over in Fort Dodge, Camp Dodge, over near Des Moines area for, I want to say it was 14 weeks then. I don't know the current length of time, but for the police academy there, where we received training in all sorts of things between criminal law, OWI investigation, and just, other law enforcement aspects, I would guess.
When you left the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy to become a Linn County Sheriff's Deputy, did you then become a sworn peace officer in the state of Iowa?
Yes, sir. Upon graduation, I was titled as a sworn peace officer in the state of Iowa, basically to enforce every law in the state of Iowa, no matter where I'm at in the state. From the west side to the east side, then I am certified in the entire state that I can enforce any law in the state of Iowa.
Have you held that designation then since you graduated and were sworn in around about 2014?
Yes, sir, I have.
You talked a little bit about some of the specialized training that you received and some specialized roles that you fulfilled with the Linn County Sheriff's Office, including honor guard, accident investigator, peer support, and then some other things I didn't catch. Is there anything else that you've done that you haven't told us about?
Not that. Oh, I was also a field training officer, more so in the jail. Basically, my duties as a field training officer are to instruct the new deputies in the jobs, just to explain to them how it works, kind of manage their introduction into the correctional center, and make sure that they can perform the work as is instructed, and basically make sure that they're successful in their job.
Were you working then in your capacity as a Linn County Sheriff's Deputy and a sworn peace officer in the state of Iowa on or about June 20th of 2021?
Yes, I was.
Before I go into the next set of questions, Sheila, how's he doing? Okay. And you do have a tendency for that, Deputy Halverson. I know you might be a little nervous and excited, or maybe just want to get through this, so we'll both do our best to slow down. Tell us about your assignment on June 20th, 2021.
June 20th, 2021, I was assigned on the patrol division. I was assigned as Zone 2. Zone 2 is defined as more or less the northeast quadrant of Linn County. It encompasses the cities of Prairieburg, Coggon, and Central City. And my duties as a Zone 2 car, for that, the shift was 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. My duties during that time are to patrol mainly that area. However, I'm allowed to go outside that quadrant to assist other deputies as needed.
By June 20th of 2021, how long had you been working on patrol?
I came out to the road onto patrol October of 2020, so roughly 8 or so months, roughly.
You said you were working the 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift. About what time did you go on active duty that night?
I believe it was between 6:15 and 6:45. I try to be early on duty just to make sure everything's ready to go. I try to get up into my zone before or right about 7 o'clock. So I'm not kind of catching up in case there's early calls.
Do you all keep your patrol cars at your home and then drive out to your zone?
Yes, anyone who's on the patrol division and they live inside Linn County, we have take-home squad cars. So yes, my patrol car. When I get off at night, I park it in my driveway and I go inside. And then before I go to work, I just have to walk out with my uniform on, start my car, start my computer, get all my programs ready for work, and take off.
So I bet your neighborhood's pretty safe then.
Yes.
So tell us about your regular routine and the duties you perform usually for the first few hours of your shift.
The first few hours, especially normally on Sundays, really any time when I work 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., the first few hours of my shift, if there are no calls for service, I try to patrol kind of the border and the major highways of whatever zone I'm in, and work on traffic enforcement, whether it's looking for people that are just driving too fast for the conditions, or looking out for motorists that are on the side of the road, their vehicle's broken down. But I try to get that done early, mainly because there tend to be more people out between the hours of 7 p.m. and roughly midnight versus midnight to 3 a.m. And usually when I perform traffic stops, I try to kind of bring over my kind of respect from when I was in the jail. I understand everyone speeds. I speed, everybody speeds. Anybody who tells you they don't speed just doesn't admit it. But I try to explain to people, as long as their license is valid when I stop somebody, I have no problem cutting them a warning or lowering the speed to a more acceptable level, as long as people are willing to be honest and respectful at the same point. And then just that's part of my banter back with motorists when I stop them, because interactions with law enforcement is never fun. I know when I still get pulled over, the occasions that I do, I can feel my heart pounding, and I know that trepidation is like, oh no, what is going to happen? So I try to understand that when I talk to people, and I try to be very, very kind of free-going and easygoing with people. Make them feel like it's not the end of the world, because it's not. But usually for the first part of my shift, I try to really work on traffic enforcement, mainly to keep the roadways as safe as I can.
Deputy Halverson, I know you're trying to slow down for us.
Okay.
Your fingers are going to wear the nubs if you don't, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
So tell us about the first few hours of your shift on June 20th, 2021, up until the time you were dispatched to Casey's and Coggon.
I remember that day very well, because I think it was right near the beginning of my shift, or pretty close to when I started my shift. I remember driving north on Highway 13, and it was, the only thing I could really say, it was like almost a monsoon. It was a torrential downpour of rain. I know our emergency management people were out, tornado spotters, looking for anything, any adverse weather. So me not wanting to drive to and be part of the problem, I remember I parked my patrol vehicle up in Pennington Ridge and just kind of sat there listening to the radio monitoring for traffic, for any calls for service, but tried to stay more centrally located. One, so I'm not driving around and put myself in the ditch and then somebody has to come find me. So I just kind of stopped and waited out the storm, so to speak. Shortly after the downpour stopped, I believe I was dispatched to a call of a disturbance that I realized later was nearby to where I was at, involving, I believe it was like an RC car, basically a dispute over ownership of property. Shortly after that, it was getting later, and then I drove up from that area near Central City. I believe I took Sawyer Road over to Prairieburg Road and drove up into Prairieburg, where I parked in the fire department parking lot, facing south like I usually do, and turned my stationary radar on just to kind of monitor speeds, because up in Prairieburg, the speed is 25 miles an hour in the town. So if anything, just seeing my patrol car there tends to slow people down. I don't think I have stopped a person for speeding in Prairieburg. I think my presence is what I use.
So you performed your regular duties, as you've described for us, on June 20th, 2021, at approximately 10:18 p.m. in that area. Were you dispatched to the Casey's in Coggon?
I actually was not. Another deputy was dispatched to the Coggon Casey's, and I remember it vividly because I got on the radio and I said, I'm going. It was a call for a robbery in progress, I believe. And, a robbery in progress. And, I was right there. I was closer, I believe, than the other deputy who was dispatched. And I didn't take personal offense to that I wasn't sent, because he had just came on. He was working 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I understand that. But I felt I was closer, and I like to be part of what's going on. You pay me to do a good job in the city or in the county of Linn, I'm going to do it. So I told him I was going to take the dispatch.
So you didn't get the call, but you overheard the radio traffic and you were close by, so you went into Coggon because that's your zone, that's the area you take care of.
Yes, sir.
What other deputies, to your knowledge, were en route to that location along with you?
My recollection was originally Deputy Oltman. Matt Oltman was dispatched. He was the original dispatchee. And then I piped in and said I was going. And I believe at that time, because of the severity of the original call being a robbery in progress, even though we get a lot of false alarms for burglary alarms and things of that nature, the nature of the call, I believe Deputy Derek Steinis, who was also working 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., said he was en route to that call as well. And then I believe Deputy Heath Omar, who was working 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. in Zone 1, which is the northwest quadrant of Linn County, involving Walker, Center Point, and part of Albernet, stated he was going to that as well.
Where were you then when you stopped what you're doing, heard that call, and started heading that direction?
I was still in the parking lot, I guess not parking lot, but I was still at Prairie Brook Fire. I think I might have actually just finished up radar, or I was in the midst of, getting ready to change my routine. I still probably put my car in drive and drive where I was going to go next. Sometimes I let kind of fate take me where I'm going to go. I don't always try to have a set pattern. We tend to, unfortunately.
Did you proceed to the Casey's in Coggon in an emergency fashion?
Yes, I did. And I remember that vividly too, because the roadway was very wet because of the downpour that had occurred. I turned my my lights and sirens on, and I headed north on Prairie Brook Road, which is it's equidistant of taking another way. I would have gotten there either way at the same time, roughly. Headed north on Prairie Brook Road to where there's an intersection with Monticello Road, where I turned west. And the reason I remember it vividly is because as I was approaching that intersection, I was probably driving too fast for the conditions, like many people do, and I started to slide. And I remember I had some choice language on my in-car camera as I was sliding, and in my brain I'm thinking, I don't want to end up in the ditch. So I kind of backed it off as I continued on. I continued west down Monticello Road to Highway 13. As I approached Highway 13, I believe I flicked my lights off and on to cancel my audible siren, mainly due to the fact there were still cars, I believe, coming up and down Highway 13. I don't know how many cars I would have encountered, but I know it's close enough. It was a June evening. I know it was close enough to Coggon that my siren may carry. A lot of times we turn our lights and sirens off as we get closer to more serious calls, robberies, domestics, things of that nature, because anyone who's involved in that, we don't want to tell them, hey, the cops are coming. Just for, one, our safety, and if it was something dangerous like that, we want to get there and try to have as much heads up and not be surprised as possible. So as I turned south onto Highway 13, I believe my emergency lights were activated, but my siren was not. And then as I continued to head south toward the Casey's.
While you were en route to the Casey's in Coggon and nearly driving off the road but correcting, and then turning your sirens off but leaving your lights on, were you also listening to some radio traffic from the other deputies?
Yes, I was.
And as a result of that radio traffic, did you learn some information from another deputy about some prior activity at the Casey's in Coggon that then caused you to be aware of some things as you arrived there?
Yes, I did. I recall Deputy Oltman.
Your Honor, objection calls for hearsay, what the deputy told him.
I sustain the objection. Mr. Maygangs, if you would please ask your next question.
Deputy Halverson, I'm going to ask this in the form of a yes or no question. While you were en route and proceeding to the Casey's in Coggon, did you receive some information from another deputy that was proceeding to that location that there was a suspicious call earlier that same morning involving a gray or bronze man?
Yes.
And just for the record, is the Casey's in Coggon the same one that's at, I think, 5110 Highway 13?
I don't know the exact street address, but yes, it is on Highway 13, and it is the only Coggon in Casey's, or Casey's in Coggon.
And that's in Linn County, Iowa, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you arrive at that location at approximately 10:25 p.m.? Is that consistent with your memory?
Yes, it is.
Upon arrival at that location, did you make any observations about any vehicles in the parking lot that drew your attention, particularly in light of the information you received over the radio?
Yes, I did.
And what did you observe?
I observed a gray van that was parked on the north side of Casey's. It was facing south. The north side of Casey's, I believe, near the ice machines. Near the ice machines.
And is that on the north side of the building?
Yes, it is.
So what did you do in terms of how you pulled in with your squad car and parked it?
As I approached, my emergency lights were still on. I don't recall if I turned them off or not. But as I approached, I pulled up behind the gray van. However, I didn't pull up close enough to box the gray van in. I left some good room between my patrol vehicle and that gray van.
And were you in a marked law enforcement vehicle?
Yes, I was.
Did it clearly have the words Linn County Sheriff's Department on it, or office? I don't know what it has.
Yes, on the sides it had the Linn County Sheriff's Office as well as the badge for the Sheriffs of Iowa.
And the lights on top of the car were clearly visible and to be able to be seen?
Yes, they were.
Were you in duty gear and uniform?
Yes, I was in full. It would have been summer, so I would have had a short sleeve shirt on, my brown shirt and my olive green pants, duty belts, badge on my left breast, as well as my name tag and my unit citations on my upper right breast.
And does this uniform clearly then represent yourself as a law enforcement officer?
Yes, it does.
Your credentials are observable and viewable from the front of your uniform?
Yes, they are.
And is this the same uniform that is worn by Linn County Sheriff's deputies in the summer?
Yes, it is.
Did you also have some duty gear on you?
Yes, I was equipped with my my duty service weapon at the time, which was a .40 caliber Glock pistol, as well as I had a handheld radio with a mic that wrapped around my shoulder. I had a taser equipped on my left side, I believe, as well as an expandable straight baton, OC pepper spray, and I believe 1 or 2 sets of wrist restraints. Wrist restraints, handcuffs, sorry. As well as a flashlight.
Were you wearing a bulletproof vest?
Yes, I was.
Is that visible?
The vest is not outwardly visible. You can definitely tell when someone is wearing one because it doesn't conform to your body as well as not wearing one. But you can kind of see the extra bulk underneath the uniform shirt, yes.
What did you do as you exited your vehicle?
As I exited my vehicle, because it was late at night and it was drilled into me during training, I grabbed my flashlight because we always want to have a flashlight present with us whenever the time of day is, honestly. I exited my patrol vehicle. Let me back up. I radioed that I was on scene to that call and grabbed my flashlight in my right hand and exited my patrol vehicle. As I exited my patrol vehicle, I remember locking it with the key fob that I have attached to my belt and proceeded toward the front door of Casey's.
And what did you do as you approached the front door of Casey's?
I attempted to kind of look in to kind of, take in the whole scene. I did note that as I approached, there's a small window as I'm coming in off to the right, where normally you can see into the cashiers, but a lot of times they have like window wrapping, kind of advertising sales or things of that nature on that window. So I really couldn't see in. Normally I can see the clerk standing right there because they would stand sideways, so you'd be able to see them. I didn't see anyone standing where the clerk would stand, and as I approached, same thing that the door had something kind of covering it. I don't recall what it was. And then I proceeded to open the door to the store.
And you had your flashlight in one hand.
Yes.
Is that in your right or left?
I believe it was in my right hand at that time.
And so did you grab the door with your left hand?
I would have grabbed the door with my left hand, yes.
So you're entering the Casey's. Tell us what you observed when you entered the store.
As I entered the store, I observed a male standing pretty much right where you would stand if you were checking out. He had a garbage bag over his shoulder. He had a black hoodie on that was pulled up, covering his face, or covering the side of his face, so I wasn't able to see from his side. I did observe that I could see that he was an African-American male.
So he had a garbage bag over his shoulder
Yes,
and a black hoodie on, but you could still see his face.
correct. From the side, it wasn't a full profile. I could not see his ear, but I kind of was able to get a good look at his face, where I was able to determine that he was African-American. He wasn't white. He wasn't, that he was African-American.
And when you saw his face, were you also able to observe some of his facial features too?
Yes, I was.
Based upon the nature of the call, the information you got about the vehicle from earlier that morning, and seeing somebody with a garbage bag over their shoulders at that entryway, what did you decide to do next? What was your thought in your mind?
At that point, going through our heads is a lot of things, but you determine what I'm going to do next. My decision, was a spur of the moment at that time, but my mind was, at least I'm going to detain this person because it seems odd. I don't see any clerks. I see a person with a garbage bag standing at the doorway with a hoodie pulled up. So I remember telling the person, I set my flashlight down with my right hand on the where you would check out at. I set it down there. I remember telling the person, as I reached with I believe my left hand, I told them to turn around and put their hands behind their back, or I started to say that. That was the next step, because I was going to at least detain the person to figure out what was going on.
So you put your flashlight down on the counter,
Yes.
and then you were going to detain him. What area of his body then were you reaching for in order to detain him?
I would have been reaching, I believe, for his right arm, because he was kind of he was facing this way. If I'm looking at him, he was facing this way. So I set my flashlight down and I reached with my left hand to put my hand on his arm as I told him to turn around, I believe.
So you told him to turn around. What happened? Well, let me ask you this. When you were trying to detain him then, were you still, during that period of time, then able to see his person, including his face, during those moments?
Yes, I was.
When you told him to turn around, what did this person do?
He pulled away from me and kind of turned to his left side and spun around. And at that time, he pulled a firearm out from his possibly hoodie. I don't know where it was from. It appeared somewhere, and started firing at me.
So he produced a firearm. Do you remember what the firearm looked like?
No, I couldn't tell you, honestly. To this day, I don't remember a thing about the firearm. I know that it was there.
When he spun around and produced that firearm, did he immediately begin shooting?
I believe so, yes.
Were you shot?
Yes, I was.
Do you know at the time how many times you were shot?
At the time, no. It felt like it was 100, but I didn't count at the time, no.
Deputy Halverson, can you describe for us the feeling that you had in this moment where this person turned around and immediately fired at you and you felt yourself being shot?
Yeah, I can. It was a surreal moment of, this isn't a dream. This is happening. This is real life. This isn't, I'm not going to wake up. I'm not going to wake up in my bed at home. Thank goodness that was a dream. That was real life. That I was being shot. I know what went through my head. It was something, oh crap, but not crap, something else, that I'm being shot. And the time seemed like it slowed down.
Can you tell us a little bit about the sensation that you had in your body?
I would say intense pain of, this is what it's like to be shot. Nobody knows, unless you've been shot, what it feels like. But it felt like, oh man, I can remember just the feeling, pain, but of going through my mind, just disbelief. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. I'm going to wake up. This is a dream. This doesn't happen to people. It's just in the TV. But it was happening to me.
When you were shot, did you fall to the ground?
Yes, I did.
What happened when you fell to the ground? What position were you in, and what events, if any, do you recall happening next?
After I was shot, I fell basically face first onto the ground like a pancake. I remember I had stars in my head, kind of when you bonk your head, just kind of that like, oh, what's going on feeling, kind of dazed. And I remember at that point, I remember trying to move my leg at one point, and I couldn't feel my legs at all. So it ran through my mind that I'm paralyzed. This is what it feels like to be paralyzed. So I recall that. I remember being just laying face down. And it felt like forever still being laying down there, and I felt a tugging on my right side where my firearm was at. And I could feel our firearms, we have a multiple retention system. That's not just a holster where you just pull straight out. There's other retention mechanisms to keep the firearm from falling out, but two, keeping other people from walking up and just pulling it out. I felt somebody tugging on my firearm, and I remember laying there and just saying, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. It was very, very weak saying it, but I remember just like, man, this guy's going to take my gun, just finish the job. And then I felt my gun go, and I heard nothing. I felt nothing. After that, I don't know what happened to the person after that. All I can speculate would be he left. And I remember laying there. That door, I remember that Casey's door was like up on my leg, I think. I remember kicking it with one of my legs. I started to get feeling back in my right leg. I remember kicking it, and I was partially mad at that door. I just kept thinking, this door keeps hitting me. I remember laying down and taking my radio. I remember trying to key my radio and it wouldn't work, and I didn't know what was going on. So we were taking it out of my radio holster and removing the body mic and trying to key up on it. And part of it was still because I was very dazed and confused. That brain wasn't working. I didn't know what was going on. I remember taking my body camera off.
So, Deputy, I'm going to stop you now and have Mr. Maybanks ask another question.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. So you fell to the ground. You said you were face first. you felt the tugging on the area of your duty belt where your firearm was.
Yes.
That you told this person in a weak voice, "Please don't kill me."
Yes.
And then the person, to your knowledge at least, left.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, you had, as we established here, an opportunity to view the face of this man, right?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to look into his eyes?
Yes, I was.
Did that moment and the events that followed that allow you the opportunity to record in your memory his face?
Very much so, yes.
As you laid there on the floor in the entrance to the Casey's, did you believe that you were going to die?
Yes.
And that this man was the person that just tried to take your life?
Yes, I did.
Do you see that man in the courtroom today?
Yes, I
Objection,
do.
Your Honor, same reasons raised in the motion in limine.
Overruled.
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify him by an article of clothing and where he's positioned at the table?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can answer.
A red tie with a white shirt.
We've been through this today. There's two people with a red tie, kind of paisley and a white shirt. Does the person have a jacket on or not?
No, there's no jacket on.
May the record reflect that the witness did an in-court identification of the defendant, Your Honor.
It may so reflect.
You mentioned that you keyed your radio.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what that means?
So part of our radio, my body mic, it's got a button. You push it down, you talk into it. Occasionally, if you push the button down and somebody else is talking, it beeps at you. It doesn't let you kind of overwrite their talking. At some point during the whole incident, I remember on our radios, there's a little orange button that we call a code 1 pin. When you push that button, it sends a tone to our dispatch center, and I believe even Cedar Rapids Dispatch Center. Everybody who's in a dispatch center in that area gets this tone, and code 1 in law enforcement is officer needs assistance. I don't recall pushing it, but I was told I did. When you push that button, the way it's supposed to work, and I don't know if mine worked that way or not, but I know when I worked in the prisons, we had the exact same radios. When you push that button, you get a talk. You say everything. If someone's on the radio, you get about 10 seconds or so of uninterrupted airtime. So if you push it on accident and you say, "Oh, something," everybody in the dispatch center, people can hear that. And I remember at some point I pushed that button. I don't recall pushing it, but I did.
Deputy Halverson, I'm going to ask you another question.
Okay.
All right. So this is the code 1 button that stands for officer down.
Correct.
And were you equipped with a body camera at the time of this incident?
Yes, I was.
And what did you discover later about the body camera, I guess, the ability to record, or if it recorded or not?
So our body cameras are linked to our patrol cameras in the vehicles. So the way it's supposed to work, when I turn my lights and sirens on, when I go over 100 miles an hour with no lights and sirens on, if I have certain other triggers that set off, it turns my patrol vehicle camera on and my body-worn camera on. It's not usually one or the other. If I push the one on my chest to turn my body camera on and I'm close to my car, it'll turn my car camera on too. So the way it has always worked in the past for me, I turn my lights on, my sirens on, both body cameras turn on, as well as I have a body mic that I have that picks up for my in-car camera, that they all turn on. Later I discovered that due to some hardware malfunction or software malfunction with my body camera, it did not record. When I looked down, I think I assumed it was turned on, but apparently it was not recording at all. My body-worn camera was not.
So as a result of that, unfortunately, we don't have body camera footage of this incident. Is that your understanding?
That's correct, yes.
Did you have, or did you discover, while you were on the floor of the Casey's in the entrance area, another means at which to talk or broadcast out to your fellow deputies that night?
Other than my radio, I remember yelling help after I hit apparently my code 1 pin. I remember just yelling, help. I would think I was kicking the door with my right foot, my right leg at some point, just to kind of keep the door from slapping me, but to try to make notice that, hey, this door's flapping open. That's not normally how it works.
So did you believe that you were able to speak through that microphone that's connected to your squad car out to fellow deputies when you were calling for help?
At that point, I wasn't thinking about that my body mic would be picked up by my in-car camera. I thought that my walkie-talkie radio was my means of communications, and I remember being very frustrated when I tried to key it up and my brain was not working right, and it was not working.
Were you still talking into the radio out to your fellow members to try to reach someone for help?
Yes, I recall saying multiple things, I believe, on my radio as I was laying there.
Did you believe that if you did not get assistance or help, that it would be possible that you would die?
I did.
Your Honor, may we approach for a minute here?
You may.